So Monday morning. What is your favorite animal? Or what are some experiences you've had in nature? Today is National Wildlife Day, so we're going to be talking about experiences we've had in nature and with animals. And
plus, it's one of my favorite topics because I'm an ecology major in school. And so I love my plants, animals, and bugs.
Yeah.
True story.
I don't like bugs, but
she likes some bugs. Like we saw a praying mantid today.
I love praying mantids. There's the bugs that bother me are the ones that I don't like. I don't like mosquitoes, and
just because I know the name of mosquitoes doesn't mean I like them. Just like it's the same way that just because I know the Latin name of flies doesn't mean I like them.
I like spiders. I do not like earwigs. Earwigs can die, and the spiders can.
Just because I know the Latin name for earwigs does not mean that I like them.
I let spiders live in my house. I'm like, oh, good, friendly critter. Especially eat the earwigs, spiders. Please. Stupid, nasty bugs.
Just
one bit my daughter. Clear, pinched my daughter, I guess, is more what I.
And just to be clear, spiders are not
insects.
Bugs. They're not insects. They are arachnida in the
anyway,
order arachnida. I mean the order arachnida. Yes.
We, as stated before in other episodes, we grew up in a very outdoorsy family. We went fishing and camping and hiking and all that stuff.
And we went hunting, even if we didn't.
And we had family members with horses and cows and chickens and all that stuff.
One time we went on a hike riding horses. So some people actually walked. And so we took turns because there weren't enough horses for all of us. And I just remember that we were hiking up this huge mountain and it was gorgeous. And we would take turns riding the horses and then take turns walking. And there was, they were pack horses. So there was a lead horse and it was awesome.
Yes, and hiking on a horse is much better, in my opinion, than hiking on foot.
At least to mix it up. I don't care either way. I like hiking and I like hiking on a horse, but mixing it up, even for you, is still better than hiking the whole way.
Yes, it's true, unless it's a very easy hike. I like being in nature. So when we lived in...
Our kids do too.
My kids love hiking. They like to find the snail shells that are tiny all over the place on the side of the trails.
I like to find arrowheads.
So
they like to find rocks.
So when, they like rocks. To the sparkly...
Oh my goodness, look, it's a rock! Wow, it's a rock, wild in the nature.
When we lived in St. Louis, there, you can imagine, it's humid and there's a lot of rainfall, so amphibians and reptiles thrive there. And so I love...
cottonmouths and water moccasins.
They're not that...
I almost landed on a couple after going off that one rope swing into the river.
I landed in the shadow, or in the reflection of the moon. I was not in the nude, though.
I was like, were you mooning the moon?
I knew she was thinking that. I was in a swimming suit that time. I did want to do it in the nude, but I didn't end up doing it.
It's not like we did it any other time. All right, we've skinny dipped a couple
wild times. Children.
If you call that wild, that's not wild to me.
So we would go camping in...
It's not like anybody was going to see us.
The Ozarks in Missouri and Illinois and Tennessee and all kinds of places.
I think it's Missouri.
And Missouri. I could sleep to the sound of the croaking and the chirping and the bugs.
Better than we could inside at the house, sleeping on the bed, sweating our butts off.
No, in general, I could sleep with that sound. It's like the most soothing sound for me than anything.
Yeah, and we didn't have that at home. That's what my point is.
Here we don't have that. I mean, there's nature sounds like when you go in the mountains.
Crickets.
Yeah, but it's not as loud and it's not as...
It depends on if you're close to a river or not.
As like this blanket sound.
If you're right next to the snake, to the south fork of the snake, there are just as many frogs. But you have to be right next to the river.
Well, I'm not going to camp in the river.
No, even remember when we went up to the family reunion? We were right next to the river. That's true. And there were a crap ton of...
There was a creek with...
Well, it wasn't a creek. It was a full-on river. apparently she hasn't seen rivers that are like 2 feet wide, because that's how big the rivers, a lot of the rivers
It
are.
wasn't 2
and then
feet.
they
It was
combine
not. It
to
was.
create big rivers, but when they're coming down the mountain, they're small rivers.
It wasn't
Streams.
narrow enough for us to jump across. Definitely, it was much too wide for that. So you're right. It wasn't a creek, but
She just likes saying the word creek.
no. It's more like that's what it is to me because it's relatively small. Whatever. I mean, I call our mom's ditch a creek, even though it's clearly not.
It's not even a canal. It's
A ditch.
Straight up. What do they call it when it's full, though?
I don't know. Anyway, so
I just do the water work. I don't know all these technical names. Psh.
what are some funny stories that you have of being in with wildlife? My favorite animal, as we said in the beginning, we would talk about our favorite animal. I've always liked snakes. I did a research paper on them in.
She loves herpetology. That is not the study of herpes. That's
It's the study of reptiles, which is what Steve Irwin did. That's what he was. He was a herpetologist, but he was more into alligators and crocodiles and stuff.
So,
But he
yeah.
still knew tons about snakes.
But he was into
awesome.
he was he like studied and researched in herpetology in general
Here's the thing.
and zoology.
I've always loved
because
snakes.
arachnids.
I think that they're fascinating. They're amazing, like water moccasins and cottonmouths, like she was talking about, which I think are the same thing.
Black snakes, which are non-poisonous, but I've been bitten by them anyway.
They are amazing. Those are actually my favorite.
Don't try
Like-
being a crocodile hunter at home, because I was. When I was in Illinois, I would try and pick up the snakes that I was pretty sure were harmless. I wasn't sure, but I was, like 50% sure. And so I would play crocodile hunter and I would pick them up. And if you pick them up by the end of its tail and they're not super long, they can twist themselves up and bite you, and then they'll bite you again and again and again until you drop them. And then, so don't pick it up again after that, because, from personal experience, I've had that.
My favorite kind of snakes are vipers, which are the snakes with the big, huge 2-inch fangs that fold up to the roof of their mouth, and when they open, they swing forward.
But that's not why they're called vipers. The reason they're called pit vipers is because...
Vipers and pit vipers are different.
Okay, fine.
Pit vipers are a type of viper, so vipers all have those 2-inch fangs that swing forward. Rattlesnakes, pit vipers are my favorite. Rattlesnakes are pit vipers. Eyelash, what are they called? Eyelash, yeah, fertilants. And then another one is called sidewinders. Those are not even venomous.
Oh, really?
Anacondas
I thought that they
are
were.
not venomous.
They were venomous and
they're not.
constrictors.
It's a lie. So, sidewinders.
To the media.
Sidewinders are amazing. They leave this really cool pattern
In the sand.
Yes.
They're
so
desert
those are my
kings.
favorite kind of snakes. But that's not my favorite animal. I discovered just actually a week ago. My kids, I was asking them what their favorite animal was in the car just to have a conversation with them on the way home from something. And they were like, my favorite animal is this. And it changes every day probably.
Maybe once a week.
I was thinking about it. Snakes are not my favorite animal, although I do love them. Orcas have always had a thing in my heart. I just love orcas. I think that they're fascinating. I think they're beautiful. I think they're so cool and gracious and all that stuff. So,
one of my favorite animals.
what is your favorite animal?
Oh, yes.
The favorite.
I don't have one. You see, you can't be, it's like picking a favorite song. I'm like, well, first give me a genre, and then give me a band, and then I'll pick my favorite song from that band, from that genre.
I have a handful of songs that I can legitimately say are in my top 10 favorites, but I couldn't narrow it down to one ever in my whole life.
I had to pick a different, like...
This is off topic.
I think that I could pick like 100 in my top 10. So...
That doesn't even make sense.
I'm like, oh, that's in my top 10, and then I realized that I went way over my top 10. I don't care. They're all in my top 10. That's how much I love them. I love them.
So
what
are a few animals that you love?
So here's one thing that I love about certain particular animals is one thing that I absolutely love is when they have hardly any research done about them.
Like squids.
Yes,
like giant squids. I love those
I've always
too.
had a huge fascination for squids, and I love, 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 love blue whales because they don't know anything about them, and so I'm just like
they're too big for us to even observe.
Well,
That's
no, not
why.
just that, but we don't even know their migration pattern. We don't know where they go. We don't know hardly anything about them, and I think that it's so cool. And I just for them to be that obscure, that not obscure, that like hard,
unknown.
that hard to track,
Mysterious.
that mysterious, that just they have that factor, and so. I love those kind of animals, like the animals in the deep rainforest, the animals in the deep ocean, the animals that we don't know hardly anything about. Those are factors that I find completely fascinating because I always assumed that I could be the one to figure it out. Another animal that I really, a type of animal that I really love are ones that we don't have a lot of anymore. And that's not necessarily the reason why it's I love the black rhinoceros. I love it. Love rhinos. It's like, I'm not kidding.
Endearing.
They look, because
they're adorable.
They're beautiful. So
babies are so cute.
So when I was in Kenya, they only have about, I think, 30 left in the Mara in Kenya. And so, that's all of the species. And so it's just crazy that there are hardly any left in the wild in the world. And so I'm not saying that that's something that it needs to be, but I just love the black rhino. So we were flying out from the Mara. We were just about to leave. And as we were taking off, because I had been wanting to see a black rhino the whole entire time we were there, but all the guides kept on telling me, no, but hardly anybody ever sees them when they're here for a visit. Like, we see them once in a great while. We hardly ever see black rhinos ourselves. And so as we were taking off from the Mara, I saw the one running up the edge of the forest and was just running back and forth, and it looked like a small mountain running, and at full super speed. It was like so fast, and it looked like a small mountain. I'm not kidding. It was ridiculous, and it just made me love rhinos even more. So that's one of my favorite animals. I love lemurs. I love aren't lemurs the ones that are in Madagascar? Anything in Madagascar, anything. I don't care what it is. If it's in Madagascar, it's one of my favorite animals.
What's your favorite animal? What are your experiences
with
in
animals?
Nature?
We love
Tell
animals.
us. Thank you
especially
for watching.
Like,
comment, subscribe.
Yes, and may adventures be in your cards.